This video will be on section 4.4, slope. So when we are looking at slope, slope has to do with our linear equations. And our basic form of slope is just to find the slope when we have a graph. So you've all seen things that slope. If you were to put, say, a ramp onto a graph, you could find out exactly how much it slopes. And they do that because they don't want to make ramps too steep or too shallow. So when you're looking for slope, you find 2 points specifically where they are on one of the crosshairs. If we were to graph this a little more exactly, it'd have the full grid. We want a point that is actually on the grid. So if we were to go through, if it was a full grid, you can see that that point crosses here at 3, 2 and at 0, 1. So the slope of a line is given by how far up you've gone, called the rise, and how far over you've gone, called the run. They may also refer to it as the change in y over the change in x, but more commonly it's referred to as the rise over the run. So we just need to count. From here to here, I have only gone one space on my grid, so the rise for this particular problem is 1. The run, and I'm just going to go left to right, we've gone 1, 2, 3 spaces, so the run is 3. Now since our line is going uphill, we have a positive slope. So I imagine on the left side of my line I have a little guy. If he had to walk, he'd have to go uphill, positive slope. If I had a graph going downhill, my slope would end up being negative. Again, I imagine a guy on the left side and say, okay, he's going downhill. So this would have negative slope. So you can identify the slope just from the graph, and you kind of form that little triangle between 2 points. Just count how far up did I go, how far over did I go. You can also find the slope just by knowing the 2 points. So the 2 points for the line we've already found the slope for were 0, 1, and 3, 2. There is an equation that allows us to find the slope of any 2 points. Slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So when you look at a point, every point consists of an x value and a y value, an x value and a y value. Now this point is our first point, so we call this x1, y1 just to differentiate. Those came from the first point. Our other point is the second point, so we call it x2, y2 to differentiate and say, oh, that's from the second point. So once we've identified, we just need to subtract. So y2 is 2 minus y1, which is 1, over x2, which is 3, minus x1, which is 0. So we do our subtraction on top first. 2 minus 1 is 1. Our subtraction on bottom next. 3 minus 0 is 3. So using that equation, we have also found the slope. Now there are some special cases. That is when you have a horizontal line or a vertical line. So when you have a horizontal line, this line has a slope of 0. And then the equation is y equals a number. I'm going to use the number symbol. I know that has now become the hashtag symbol, but it was originally just a symbol to mean number. So if my graph were up 2, this one specifically would be the line y equals 2. If I have a vertical line, then we have a slope that is called undefined. Or sometimes they say no slope. No slope is different than a slope of 0. And then this one will have an equation that starts with the letter x. Instead of having both a y and an x in one equation, the special cases only have a letter y or only have a letter x. And same idea, it'll be x equals some number. In this case, that number would be 3 because it crosses at 3. So for these special lines, they may give you 2 points and say, find the equation of these 2 points. Now first, to do that, I'm going to find the slope. Well, we have our formula from earlier, which says y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Here we have x1, y1, x2, y2. First point, second point. So y2 minus y1 is 4 minus 4. x2 minus x1 is 8 minus 3. 4 minus 4 is 0. 8 minus 3 is 5, and 0 divided by 5 is 0. This equation has a slope of 0. That means it is a horizontal line, and it has an equation y equals some number. Well, looking at these, they have the same y value. That is the number that our y would equal. If it were to be something like this, so still same idea, we still want to find the equation. Again, we have our x1, y1, x2, y2, and we have a slope of 4 minus -1. 4 and then minus from the formula, -1, because that's what y1 equals. And then on the bottom, 2 minus 2. Now when you have a minus minus next to each other, that whole thing becomes plus. So really we're doing 4 plus 1, which is 5, 2 minus 2, which is 0, and then 5 divided by 0, you cannot do. You can never divide by 0. So that gives us our undefined slope. That means we have x equals a number, and notice this time the x values match. That means x equals 2. So that concludes our discussion on slope and the slope of special lines.